Good evening, everybody. My name is Brandon Paxton. Thank you very much for joining us here tonight in Beavercreek Station 10. This is the second of a three-part town hall series that we're doing, getting out in our fire stations, our communities, to talk about a lot about what people are thinking, right, with the 2021 wildfire season on the heels of 2020. So we'll cover a few topics. Can everybody hear me? Okay? Okay. I can use a mic too. So we'll talk about a few topics as it relates to what we saw in 2020 to kind of put that into context, what the outlook and the forecasting is looking like for 2021. Talk about some resource changes we've had within Clackamas Fire, a little bit of public education, and most importantly, we want to open it up and ask you all to share your questions and concerns so we can address those. So stop us at any time if there's questions, but other than that, we've got Fire Chief Nick Brown is going to be speaking, and then Deputy Fire Marshal Captain Kerry Shanklin will be covering some of the public education. And if there's any emergency management questions, our emergency manager is here as well. Clacco TV is here. They're going to be recording this. It'll be available late next week on our social media platforms as well as theirs. So if you forget what we say or if there's friends who you'd like to share with, please do. The information is important, so we want to make sure we get it out. So with that, I'll introduce our Fire Chief Nick Brown, and we'll get going. And he can talk louder. So
yeah, I got a big mouth, so I think I could talk pretty loud. No, we're good. We're good. Does everybody hear me good? Yeah? Well played. Well played. Thank you so much for coming here and giving us the opportunity to be able to discuss with you where we've been, where we are, and where we think we're going. And to be able to let me meet you and to hear concerns and questions that you have and be able to answer any questions that you have or any fears that you have. As we get started, I wanted to briefly touch on what we experienced in 2020 in September. We knew that we were in for a significant windstorm, and I remember at 6 p.m. Going and driving and looking at the sky, being like, "Okay, this isn't looking good." We had from the span of this incident, which was 12 days long. We had, in the first 72 hours of this, 144 working fires. Now, no, for Clackamas Fire. Yeah, that's for Clackamas Fire. We responded to 144 working fires. Out of those 144 working fires, 22 of them were greater alarm fires. And what a greater alarm fire is we have a predetermined amount of resources that will respond to a fire, and that's called a first alarm. Once we go to a second alarm, those are doubled. Third alarm, it's just it's consistently upgrades from there. Now, Clackamas Fire, we can handle a third alarm fire by ourselves relatively easy. Anything past there, we heavily depend on our mutual aid resources. So we had 22 greater alarm fires in that 72-hour period. In the first 6 hours of this event, we had 35 working fires, and of those 35 working fires, we had 11 greater alarms. And of those 11 greater alarms, 6 of them were third alarm or greater. And of those 6, 3 of them lasted the whole entire duration of the incident and were 7+ alarms. So the reason I preface this by saying that is something that in my career I've never experienced. Matter of fact, it's nothing that Clackamas Fire has ever experienced. And I couldn't be prouder of the men and women of Clackamas Fire for their resilience, for their dedication, and for responding and mitigating what they could with what we faced in September. I had firefighters that were awake for 72 and 96 straight hours working. Now, I'm not proud of that on my end because we like to have the work-rest ratio, but we simply couldn't. But I'm super proud of the standing army of Clackamas Fire, which has 404 men and women that are here for you. So I just wanted to briefly talk about that, about what we faced in September, and then go really kind of dive into what we're seeing here in 2021. So Based on the Northwest Interagency Coordinating Center under Predictive Services, the climate and significant fire potential outlook for August through September 2021. This is really no surprise if you just look outside. But what they say is warmer and drier than usual weather is expected to be predominant over the Pacific Northwest, which we're all seeing. 2 weeks ago when we hit the 116-degree temperature, that was pretty obvious. Fire danger will worsen through August and continue through September. The thing that's concerning to us all right now is the fuel moisture that we're seeing. The temperatures that we've faced a couple weeks ago with the record heat in the area has dried out everything. I looked on the predictive services before I came here, and our current 100-hour fuels are right around 12%, which is late August for this area. They're predicted August 1st to be down to about 8%. The 1,000-hour fuels are hovering right around 15% right now. It's super dry for our area, which is of grave concern to us. I in my career and being up in this area, I have never seen the 10, 100, and 1,000-hour fuels with that kind of moisture content. My lady, in your career, have you seen it like this? Not this time of the year, you know? So it's of grave worry. We're worried about this. We're doing everything to gear ourselves up for a busy year. Where it started to trigger in my head for this year was in April. We had a 40-acre wildfire off of Nyber Road, and we had level 3 evacuations, which, again, this is a reoccurring theme in my whole career. I haven't seen that in April. The crews did a phenomenal job. We didn't lose any homes. We evacuated the residents, and we mitigated that emergency. A week ago, we had another significant fire in Oregon City where we had to implement, again, level 3 evacuations. The great thing about that fire is we got ahead of it. We got ODF who had resources. They brought us some iron, some dozers to help out so we could create a fire line and get resources to put out the fire. And we utilized something that is new to Clackamas Fire that we learned from last year, which is my emergency manager, Greg Ramirez, set up a Clackamas Fire resource list. And we didn't have air assets through our normal avenues, so I picked up the phone off of that resource list. I called Precision Air, and we had a helicopter in the air doing bucket drops, which is something that this region, to be quite honest, hasn't done before. But that's a lesson that we learned from last year, and it was amazing and awesome to see that helo in the air from me calling the ops manager at Precision saying, I need you to launch, and them launching and coming and helping us to mitigate that emergency. So I was super proud of that. It's one of those things that we've learned from last year. We have a lot of large fires, obviously, across the whole entire state, which we're getting resource depleted for Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office, ODF. The GAC had, last check on last weekend, they had one type 2 hand crew in the system, where normally they're, yeah, right? I mean, there's a tremendous amount in there. So what have we done for Clackamas Fire to prepare for this season? I just mentioned the Clackamas Fire resource list, and on this resource list is a lot of, we have dozers, we have track hose, we have helo resources, water trucks, things of that nature outside of what we possess as a fire agency. And we've done this through partnership with our citizens, and a lot of the citizens that we know have experience in fighting fire, which is phenomenal. We reached out in the fall. Battalion Chief Brent Olson had a concept that he brought to me, and it was a Type 2 hand crew for Clackamas Fire, which is unique to the state of Oregon for a municipal fire department to do this. This is all over in California. They have these Type 2 hand crews, but this is unique for the state of Oregon, and we have a Type 2 hand crew called Crew 30. It came into play in April. They've just returned home. They were on a 2-week deployment. They went to the Jack Fire in Southern Oregon and helped tremendously there. And then they were transferred to the Grandview Fire when that popped. And Brandon, was yesterday? Day before? Yeah, it was yesterday, right? Yesterday they returned back at 12:30. And I couldn't be prouder of that group of men and women and how they represented Clackamas Fire and how they represented the citizens of Clackamas Fire. To be a brand new program like that and be utilized by ODF and OSFM is pretty phenomenal, and they did a great job. But I'm extremely proud for that crew and what that's going to do to set us up for success in our region here. We purchased an additional Type 3 interface engine, and that's what you see behind me. And it's stationed out of here. We had an interface engine at engine 314, which looks exactly like this. We had one in engine 309. That was how we started, which is down off of Redland Road. We've since, last year, got one, put it up at Happy Valley Station, and then after the wildfires in September, we purchased this one right here. The flexibility that this piece of apparatus gives us is tremendous for the wildland-urban interface environment. It goes off-road, it carries a higher pump capacity, as well as more water and a more hose complement than a Type 6, which is your typical brush truck, like this one right here, to your right, 313. That it just offers a little bit more flexibility for us. Now that Type 6 that we have right there is key for our success as well. I don't want to diminish that, but working in tandem with those two rigs, it diversifies our ability to extinguish fires. We also added an additional Type 6, and this is kind of, I'm going to use the term floater, okay? Because it's not at any station. It's a high density. Wherever we are predicting that we're going to have some issue, we put this additional Type 6. Currently, right now, it's at Station 3 in the Oak Grove Fire Station, but it's an additional Type 6 to be able to put into play for this year. The next thing that I'm super excited about is that we upstaffed Station 18 out of Eagle Creek. Now, Station 18 used to be 3 individuals that worked 10 hours a day. Now we've upped that to 24/7 coverage out of Station 18 Eagle Creek that is paramedic covered with 3-person staffing. Out of this Beavercreek station, what you see is a Type 1 fire engine. That's typically used, that's to the right, it says engine 310 right there. That's typically used for your structural firefighting, if there's a house fire, something of that nature. We also have a water tender out of this station, which is 310. That gives you 3,000 gallons. This interface, brush 313, and then an additional 2,500 gallon water tender right there. So we have a lot of apparatus to cover this Beavercreek area in the event that we have something catastrophic happen here. In the event that we have another September, we go through a process in the state of Oregon. They've established fire defense boards throughout the whole entire state. And so what happens is anytime there's a large incident in a county, the expectation is that we use our local resources for mutual aid. Once those local resources are depleted, then I would contact the fire defense board chief and I would say, hey, we are maxed out with our mutual aid. We need to go to a state conflagration. That fire defense board chief would then call Oregon State Fire Marshal's office, and what they've asked us to do is to be able to be self-sufficient for up to 72 hours, which typically is quicker than that. Typically, when you order a conflagration, they're there within 24 hours, and they have somebody on scene. Last year was unique for us. We had so many fires going on in the state that when we called the conflagration on September 7th, it took 72 hours to get resources here. And they came and they relieved us from the fire, which would have been after 72 hours, which would have been Thursday morning at 6:30 in the morning. So anytime that situation happens, basically the incident commander for Clackamas Fire transitions command and authority to the state of Oregon, and then they run the incident and then get resources in from the east, west, south, state of Washington, California, whatever's needed to mitigate the incident. The beautiful thing about our area here is we're very resource rich. With the city of Portland, with Tualatin Valley and Clackamas Fire, those are the 3 biggest fire departments in the state of Oregon, all being here, we have a pretty deep resource pool. So typically we are the ones that are going to help Oregon State Fire Marshal's office throughout the state in these smaller departments that are having problems. But last year we faced it up here. And so there's been a lot of lessons learned from where we were last year to where we are today. And one of the things that we did as an organization to learn, and this is where this interface came from, where Crew 30 came from, where our upgrade and communications came from, was typically we have an after-action review after every single incident that we have, and we do it internally. But after September, we did not want to do an internal after-action review. We wanted to expose our underbelly and have somebody else come look at our system, how our command structure, our resources, how we deploy resources, and really expose us to say, hey, what are we doing well, and what do we need to, and where do we need to improve? So we went to CAL FIRE, and we had a retired fire chief out of CAL FIRE with 40 years experience come in and expose us and see how our operation was and how we did. And there was a lot of wins that were shared, and there were some losses that we have the opportunity to improve on. And one of those was getting an additional type 3, getting additional type 6, and thinking outside the box, making that next type 6, instead of a just dedicated type 6 like that, a versatile vehicle to where you could put a slip in. So it can be utilized for crew transport, or it could be utilized to plow a road with the winter storm that we had this year, and just having vehicles that are more versatile. And that's a model that CAL FIRE's utilized, and so that's what we did with our additional type 6. There was also things that with the crew 30, the type 2 hand crew, and the resource list that we developed. So that after-action review is posted on clackamasfire.com on our website. And out of that is a lot of suggestions, and it's broken down into short-term, mid-range goals, and long-term goals. Some of these things that we need to do, they take a lot of money. And so it's a long-range plan. And a lot of them are regional approaches to fixing the state of Oregon's wildfire problems that we have. The beauty from last year is that the state of Oregon, Oregon State Fire Marshal, ODF, and your regional fire departments, the collaboration, I've never seen better. For me as a fire chief to show up in Oregon City and call ODF and have them send a hand crew and dozers immediately, that's something we haven't had before in our local unit. So we had another fire on Sunday where it spotted into the ODF, and they had 2 Type 6 engines on it right then. So we have beefed up resources in this area. ODF's beefed up resources. Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office has strategically placed incident command and IMT members throughout the state to come help local agencies in the event that it's needed. So there's been a lot of lessons learned from last year, and that's really what I wanted to share with you. I have one more small piece that I'm going to turn over to Deputy Fire Marshal Carrie Shanklin to talk about, and then after she's done talking, I would love for you guys to ask questions or concerns and just have a conversation with you if that's okay. All right. Hey, thank you so much. Carrie, please.
And I will use the mic because my voice is not as loud as Chief Brown's voice. So my name is Carrie Shanklin, and I have the wonderful assignment within Clackamas Fire District number 1. I get to do outreach, and I get to coordinate programs. And so I've been in the fire service for about 20 years, and every fall I start to think about, working smoke alarms and talking to people about, getting out of their homes if they have a fire. And to be honest with you, wildfire prevention wasn't really on our radar. But that all changed about September 7th of last fall. Who realized that we could have fires to that extent in our area? And I'm a believer now, and one of the things that I got to work on is what programs could we utilize to help people plan and prepare for the threat of wildfire. And so we looked around. There's a lot of ready programs that were already developed, and so we just adopted a national program called the Ready, Set, Go program. And what that basically focuses on is 3 components of being ready for fire, being set, like knowing what to do, and if there is a fire, like having a plan in place, and then the go, which is evacuate immediately. So on the ready part, it's a big component is the concept of defensible space. If you've been watching the news, you've probably seen a lot of people focus on creating defensible space around your house. So what is that concept? What it is dividing your house into pretty much 3 zones, and the first one is the first 30 feet out, and that is the area that you should have a very limited number of combustibles in that region. So we want people to cut their grass short. We recommend less than 4 inches if possible. Limbing up trees, eliminating ladder fuels. Have you heard that term? What is a ladder fuel? A ladder fuel is the brush that kind of goes up toward the tree, and making sure that that is cut or eliminated so that the fire doesn't end up getting into the trees. That is a very hard fire to put out once that happens. And so also making sure your trees are spaced out. And so another component of that would be cleaning off the roof of any needles or debris, cleaning out your gutters. It's like kind of the best honey-do list ever. It is totally preparing yourself for the threat of wildfire. So, and we also, we get a little bit of, some of our homeowners get a little overwhelmed when they think, oh my gosh, I've got, 20 acres and where do I start? Well, a really great place to start for creating defensible space is we have the chipper grant program. One of our things that we really want to encourage people to do is to potentially think of alternatives to burning yard debris. And I know that's very challenging because there are a lot of people that really, that's kind of what they look forward to doing. It's they get the marshmallows out and they burn the yard debris. But another approach could be to utilize things such as chippers or, so one of the things that our foundation realized was the people that had donated, like, hey, we want to do something about the fires, they realized how important prevention is. And so they gave us some grants, and so we have those grants available for homeowners. If you want to start a project, creating defensible space, a fuels reduction project, or a chipper, like if you wanted to use an alternative to burning the yard debris. You can't burn yard debris right now because it is not safe to do that. But utilizing that type of an alternative program, we have $500 grants that if you go to our website and you go to, you did it just today, she told me she just did it today. You go to the clackamasfire.com website and go about 3 or 4 tabs down, and there's a Ready, Set, Go tab. You click on that, and then on the far left side of the screen, it says chipper grants. And it's a pretty easy application. You just identify who you are, what your intention is to utilize the grant, and you send a picture. We come out and we do a site visit just to make sure that it's it's a worthwhile use of the grant. And then we almost automatically approve that, and then you go ahead and have the services provided. You either you rent a chipper, you submit your receipt, and we will send you a check for $500. And so that's the one of the things that we feel like empowering homeowners to make their house or their homes and their property more defensible. And the reason that's so important is that a lot of times you'll see on the news, you'll see this massive, wildfire spreading, and that's how it happens sometimes. But then what you might not see is the embers. The embers that float, they can carry through the air for a mile or more. And if you have things in your yard or your home that can readily ignite, then the embers can start a fire. And so the little spot fires can start. And so what we're trying to get the defensible space to do is to be free from ignitions where the embers could land. So the other thing I was supposed to talk about was the set part of the Ready, Set, Go program is we want everyone to have a wildfire action plan. And what a wildfire action plan is thinking about things like, where are some of my important emergency contact numbers? What do I need to take with me in an emergency? When you're in the middle of an emergency, that is not a good time to start planning about, what's important to you, where am I going to go? We in my home during the wildfires, we had some firefighters that came to the door. We had a brush fire right across the street, and they were having just a little bit of a challenge getting a hold of it. And so they, basically said, pack up, you guys got to go. And we just had no notice. And I just remember I was so, it was so stressful. I grabbed a pillow and I started, carrying this pillow around thinking like, I got to take this. This is my favorite pillow. But that is not what I would consider to be the best planning. So thinking about it in a non-emergent situation, a non-emergency, that's what we want you to do. And that's the wildfire action plan. Knowing where you're going to go. So now more people are having a concept of like, yeah, if I have to evacuate, where am I going to go? We also have horses. And that was so challenging because, like, where are we going to go with these horses? The Clackamas County Fairgrounds was a great resource. But then that ended up getting into level, they had to evacuate that. And so then where do you go after that? And so we ended up going to a different barn. They had said kind of through the grapevine that if you were going to take your horses out of state, you had to have a certain thing called a Coggins vaccination, and ours didn't. And then they ended up waiving that. And so it's just that little bit of planning ahead of time can make that emergency situation just a little bit better. So that's the set part. And then, of course, we want you to go if law enforcement has deemed that it's time for people to go, the fire is imminent, we really, really encourage people to get out and go. One of the ways that you can find out about what level you are in is by signing up for the Clackamas County Alert System. And so that I actually did this myself because I just wanted to make sure that it's pretty easy to do. But if you go to the Clackamas County website, and then you scroll down, there's a section on COVID, and then there's one that's like, it's called like popular links or places where people tend to go. And then right in the middle of the page, there's a tab that says wildfires. You click on that, and it explains the 3 alert systems, because that was not people's common vocabulary before that. What does level 1 mean? What is level 2? What is level 3? And so it explains that very nicely. Just level 1 is the green, you're just kind of preparing, you're staying alert, you're staying informed. And then level 2 is getting ready, it's imminent, start gathering your things. And then the level 3 is go. And then if you have those alerts, you can also sign up for that on the Clackamas County webpage as well. But then you get it's really nice, it asks you, which way would you prefer to be notified? Would you prefer to be notified by phone, email? And it lets you say that, then you sign up, you basically create an account, and then you are signed up for the emergency alert system. In any emergency, time is the most important thing, and preparing ahead of time is also one of the most important things. So I think that was it for me, and now Chief Brown.
Okay. The time is yours. I would love to be able to answer any questions, any concerns, anything that's on your mind. Yes, ma'am.
2 questions.
Yes.
One is, if the fire's like 5 miles away,
Yeah.
do you recommend we hose down any trees that are close to our house or anything like that? Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you. So the question was, in the event that the fire is 5 miles away, do you recommend grabbing your garden hose and dampening the fuels that are around the house, putting it on the roof or anything along that nature to make the moistures wet? And what I will say is that helps, and that's been used as a tactic with a lot of homeowners. The problem's going to be if you're off of a well or something along those types of situations. Jay, do you have any guidance as far as that? This is Jay Wilson from the county regarding water around the homes.
Yeah, I'm Jay Wilson. I'm the county disaster management. While I'm not a fire services person, I know that in the conditions like we had before, with the winds especially, my concern would just be that they just evaporate quickly too, especially the volume of water that you might need to actually make a difference. And as the chief is saying, something that I don't know if it's going to come up here tonight or not, but the power shutoff that PG&E has put into place as a public safety measure so that it doesn't become the ignition source. If you're dependent on wells or water pressure is dependent on having electric power as well. I think it's a good, reasonable plan to think about, but it may not be the kind of thing we rely on. And then staying to do that may put you in further jeopardy. Your time is of the essence coming back.
And I think that's pretty crucial right there. Thank you, Jay, is if what level of evacuation you're under. It is a tactic that we use in the fire service to prep homes and then put up sprinklers to try to wetten the fuels around there and have them flowing if we can. Our concern is for the public, especially if you're in a level 3, is to have you vacate your home and get to safety. And that's what our number one concern is that. What's your second question?
My second question is, how's your water supply?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, we're in a drought.
Yeah. Water supply. That was the next question, is how's the water supply? So the beautiful thing with Clackamas Fires is we have these big water tenders. And so then we have identifiable water sources. We are in the state of Oregon. We are in a drought, but we still have ponds. We still have water sources. The river's still good, and we have hydrant in areas around a lot. There's hydrants in Beavercreek. There's a hydrant here. So it just really depends on where you're located and where we can get a draft site from. Water levels are low, but we still have water in the area. So our water supply is still good in this area. Yes, ma'am.
I have 3 questions.
3? Yeah. Oh, boy.
First one, fireworks. How was that decision made that they would even allow fireworks in this county with the conditions that have been going on for the last 3-4 months and what happened last summer? And then to say, things weren't going to be enforced, so takes every wind out of it. At what level is that decision made that they even let people sell them in the county?
Okay, fireworks. How is the decision made, and at what level is it made to allow people to even sell them? So a fireworks stand, I'm going to answer that piece first, has to get a permit through the Oregon State Fire Marshal's office. The local fire departments don't control that piece. What we do is we inspect the fireworks stands to make sure that they're safe. We have strict guidelines that we have to follow doing that. The decision process as far as banning fireworks is very unique. The county has jurisdiction, but the county has jurisdiction in the unincorporated areas. So Beavercreek, as I met with the county commission and recommended for a banning of fireworks use, the county enforced that. But that was all for the unincorporated areas. So then the city of Oregon City, city of Happy Valley, and city of Milwaukee, they have jurisdiction to be able to ban fireworks within the cities. So it's a multi-level decision-making process and who has the authority. So really it's the local jurisdiction over the cities, they have authority. The county has authority over the unincorporated areas, and then the governor has the ability to shut it down for the state. Did that answer your question? Okay.
The next one was when you talked about the chipper grant.
Yes, ma'am.
And they come in and they chip.
Yes.
Are the chips hauled away, or and how much fuel does that add, putting chips down on your property?
So I liken it to a bark dust fire. Bark dust fires exist, but they're very, very slow. To say that the chips wouldn't catch on fire isn't true, but the likelihood of spread versus logs and everything condensed together, that's where you're going to start getting that heat and that spread, that rapid spread. So what happens is you put the chipper and you put them into a decorative area or spread them throughout your property so that they're not a hazard bulked up like it was before. That's the principle behind it. You don't want them in a pile. If you have them in a pile, now you're creating a big problem. So you spread them out.
Third question, we have had 2 acres we've been trying to clear a forest.
Yes.
And
Not
we don't have
force,
any,
just the debris.
From the ice storms? Yeah.
we did break our forest actually.
Okay.
But when we first started to do this, which was in February after the storm,
Yes.
we came down and we had so much debris. We tried to get in contact with the fire department. I left messages saying, what's a priority? Do we want to get rid of the dry needles first? Do we want to get rid of the branches first? Do we want to get rid of small limbs or large limbs? And we couldn't get a handle on that very well. And so we just, you know, we're still in the process. We just have a 14-foot container in our place today.
Yeah.
We're going to have that hauled off tomorrow to Metro.
Okay, perfect. That's good.
We've been pulling stuff out, and it would be nice if there was some kind of information on what should be the first things we pull out. Should it be the big limbs, or should it be the needles and all of that? Because we've done it fairly methodically.
Gotcha.
I don't know if we were in the right order and how we did that.
So the question was, they've got 2 acres. They have heavily forested.
2 acres is heavily forested.
Okay, 2 acres heavily forested.
2 acres are heavily forested.
Okay, so 2 acres are heavily forested around their property. And the question was, what do we attack first? Do we attack the limbs and trees that were down in the forest, the needles, or the brush? Carrie, would you speak to the best practice for defensible space around homes and really what we try to establish?
So again, that first 30-foot zone around your house, we want to make sure that, I kind of went over a little bit about the ladder fuels, but just making sure that there's like 10 feet of spacing between the trees, and making sure that your gutters are clean, the roofs are clean. The next time that you have to replace your roof, maybe not choosing cedar shake roofing, maybe a non-combustible type. But that 30 feet zone we want as non-combustible as possible. Even wooden lawn furniture, sometimes those embers can, get to that. And then the next feet out, the next 30 to 100 feet out, that's the area where it can be a little bit more forested, but again, using good thinning practices, trying to eliminate the ladder fuels, and then it just a little bit lesser degree than the closest 30 feet to your home. What we don't want to have happen is the fire to spread in that close area toward your home. We don't want it to catch on your home. And so then as you go out further, then there can be more wooded, thicker.
And that's what we're concerned about.
Yeah.
What should come out of that first?
Oh, out of the 30 feet.
Fuel that will.
Got you.
Our trees are 100 feet high.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And there's a lot of pieces of property here in Beavercreek
Gotcha.
that
Yeah.
have 100-foot fir trees.
Right.
So how do you
Oh.
do you defend the property with those around?
So are you talking as a homeowner? For sure, prevention, that's what we're talking about, yeah. And the ladder fuels.
I understand all that, but
Spreading to our
if that,
neighbors and
if
across
that got
the
up
creek.
if that got into the trees,
Mm-hmm.
we're history. So what is the best way to defend against that happening? On our property.
In that situation, we would definitely want you to evacuate. We would, life safety is the most important thing. But are you talking about, like, we wouldn't want you to sit there and spray it with a garden hose?
No, they're talking about like right now. So thinning
Right,
it, limbing it up, those
yeah.
types of things.
10 feet up,
Preparation.
yep. Ladder fuels, eliminate, get those gone. 10 feet up with the branches. And then vertical spacing of try to aim for about 10 feet between the trees.
But I speak this for, I'm sure, everybody here that has large pieces of property. There was so much fuel that was hit the ground
Yeah.
From the ice storms. Yep.
And for years that we've had windstorms and such
Yep.
that have deposited, and we haven't gone out and collected all that, I'm sure
No.
none of us have. But now, with what happened last year, we saw what happened to the forested properties. So Judy's trying to get to the point, is it our best practice to get rid of the large branches that have
Yes.
fallen
Yes.
onto the floor of the forest? Or is there something else we should be doing?
Yes, picking up debris, just the dead limbs, the needles, those. We have 10 acres, and I picked up sticks for days, like those little stupid sticks that, just getting those off the ground, because the smaller the fuel, then the more that an ember could that on fire. But also with that chipper grant, you can use it for fuels reduction. And so if you wanted to hire someone to come in and help you get started on getting rid of some of that dead debris, the branches, let's get rid of those, and then work on. So pick up the dead stuff on the ground, then work on the ladder fuels, then start limbing up the trees, then start spacing out the trees.
We just had contracted with B&B Leasing, who's our garbage pickup in this area.
Yeah.
They deposited a 20-yard container yesterday. We filled it up today.
Yeah.
And that got rid of a lot of
it.
stuff.
Thank you,
We've done
Gary.
that twice now.
Yeah.
And it only costs $334.
$334. That's
So
amazing.
Is
Good.
that something that you guys could you do your grant for the chippers?
Correct.
Would that be something that you would be applying for people also if they wanted to rent one of those things to get rid of it? Because then it's taken to the dump station.
So
We staged it
got you.
and just loaded it.
So currently what the question was, for the chipper grant, can you use that money to pay for a container to put the fuels debris into? And the question is yes, you could. So it's all about fuels reduction for us. And that's the main, yes. Yes, sir.
This is a two-part question. First part is, assuming an average hose demand, how long does your tanker last before it has to refill? And then the second question is, presuming it's a quarter of a mile to the nearest hydrant, how long does it take to return to the hydrant, fill the tanker, and then return to the fire?
That's great. That's a great question. So, were you ready?
Corollary question, how large of a storage tank should we have on our property to make for your use?
Gotcha. Okay. To answer your question, it depends on the size of hose we're using, because that's the gallons per minute that we use. So on grass fires, we use a 3/4 inch to a 1 inch line. So the reality of it is we're flowing 50 to 75 gallons a minute, just depending on the PSI that we're running out of the pump. So that's a 2,500 gallon water tender. The tank on there right there is a 300 gallon tank. So you have 2,800 gallons between those two rigs. So if you're flowing 50 gallons a minute, I need help with that math. What's that math, Teddy? 2,500, it's 2,800 divided by 50. So we're looking at...
Let's say you're running two
14.
hoses, then it's 28 minutes. That makes sense.
There you go, 28 minutes. Two hoses, we're at 28 minutes. So I like that. Yeah, so 28 minutes with two hoses. The second question you had was...
How long does it take to run a quarter of a mile, fill in a hydrant, and then run back to the fire?
That's good. We typically have about a 5 to 7 minute turnaround in a situation like that. The container, there's a lot of different options with that. I've seen firsthand the big dump trailers like they're talking about for fuel. I've seen those lined with tarps, and that being a storage pool of water. So
Is that something that you can access to refill for your trucks?
100%. You know, ponds are things that we go in and we'll draft out of. Things of that nature are definitely things that we utilize. If you do something like that for your home, please contact our fire prevention. That way we can put it on our MDC, which is our mobile, that's our computer with our mapping system. So it's an identifiable draft site for us. That's huge.
Yeah. We're from the Beavercreek zone in California.
So you know.
And we watched everything in September, and we're like, yeah, we're getting this thing.
Yeah, yep. So it's things like that really help us out because it makes it so we don't have to travel a quarter mile to the next hydrant. We know we have a dedicated house that has 15,000 gallons or 20,000 gallons or a pond that we could draft from for days. So thank you very much for that question. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about evacuation.
Awesome.
Last year, it took us 5.5 hours to get from Ferguson Terrace to Westland.
Yes, ma'am.
Are they going to be putting out evacuation routes that we can access?
I'm going to turn that question over to the county, Jay Wilson here. This has been a very hot topic at the county, and disaster management and the county commissioners have been working on this with the local area. So Jay, I'm going to repeat the question for everybody. The question was, it took 5 hours to get from Ferguson to West Lynn last year. Is there anything being done as far as evacuations for identifiable routes, things of that nature, to make it quicker in the future?
Thank you. That's a great question, and that the answer for that would depend on basically every situation. But last year's situation caught everyone by surprise in how quickly the fires spread. And so we're doing much more in planning for evacuation with the 1, 2, 3, ready, set, go system that's here to give people much more advance notice to be planning and ready. And then staging too, because the last thing you want is to have a pileup of people at convergent points. And so the most notice that we can provide for all of you to have that head start, not to wait to the last minute, certainly not to be notified in the midst of when all of that is happening. I mean, that's the last thing we want to happen. But having a plan, having an idea of where you're going in advance, planning alternate routes if you need them. All of these things would be this relationship that we all have between your taking the time ahead of time to be responsible for thinking through what your options are. And then when we give you a recommended direction or a location or a route to take, we work very closely with the sheriff's office and with the fire services in working out where those routes should be. And so I think all of it is the mindfulness that we're working on right now to be ahead of this rather than all being in a position where we can only react when something's happening.
You know, the big concern specifically last year was the established evacuation routes and then the information we got back from predictive services of what might happen. And so that rapidly escalated the level 3 evacuations. So like Jay's saying, a timely matter of evacuations helps in that clog that developed last year. It rapidly escalated based on what the information was getting put back to the county and based on what the fire was potentially going to do.
I have a little secondary part.
Yes, ma'am. I love it. I love secondary parts. I'm in.
I know we noticed that when we came back, driveways were marked with X's and zeros.
Yes.
Which indicated whether people were gone or there.
Yes.
Doesn't that provide kind of a dangerous situation? People might want to break in?
Yeah, it does, and it's yeah, it's that what. So as the sheriff's office is scrambling, it's resource dependent, right? So what you had fire resources and you had the sheriff's office racing all over the county with the limited personnel that they had to rescue and get out as many as they possibly could, and so that was their way, so that they didn't double up effort. Since then, there's been a lot of conversation about what that looks like in the future. I do not have the answers to that. CCSO would be who you would reach out to that. We are hoping that, I'm not 100% that we could get confirmation for the August one yet. We don't know, but the hope is that August 9th in Redland, that CCSO will be with us as well as the Jay in the county, so that that specific question could get answered for you right now. But CCSO is where you want to go.
We got a spray can the same color.
Yeah.
We changed it because we didn't want anybody breaking in our house.
Yeah.
We did it back then.
Yeah.
We changed that spot so people would think that we were there so they wouldn't break in.
Gotcha.
I have a follow-on for that. I didn't get an extra note.
Okay.
I want to make sure you guys are aware that there's a home there that might want to be defended.
Signage.
I've got a mailbox, I've got address signs.
Okay, that's it. So heavily identifiable addresses and signs, and here's the reality of it. You very well had somebody probably scan it and make sure that everybody was out, and they just didn't have spray paint to mark it, but it was radioed. So the situations like that happen throughout. I cleared a neighborhood. I didn't put X's and O's, but the neighborhood.
3 houses in a row on my block.
Yeah.
Like they did.
Well, that's likely that there was the same individual that checked those and didn't use their system, or it could have been fire. that evacuated, right? So every agency had their own different way of marking, but there was radio communication on where was cleared and not. Yes, sir.
Of course, it's so important to jump out of wildfire as soon as possible.
Yes, sir.
The first hours, minutes,
Yeah.
hours, and the surveillance and monitoring has just always been really good.
Yeah.
It's awesome here. But even so, like the wildcat fire we now know was started by lightning, was hold for several days before it got attended to. Since last year, has there been any improvements in new technologies to have better, closer surveillance?
Yeah, I would have to. You're talking about the Riverside that started, and right, that's where you're.
It's just the wildcat fires down in Klamath.
Sorry, Wildcat Fires in Klamath. Yeah. So they have IR flights that go where that really comes into play is where there's a risk and resource allocation. So I wish I could answer what ODF and the Forest Service's thought process is right there. I can't. I can just speak for Clackamas Fire and what we do here. And the beautiful thing that we have here is people that see if something starts, they call 911. If it's in the middle of the forest, it's a little bit harder, and there's such a vast area of forest. But what they do is they have flights, they have cameras set up, and they are trying to improve surveillance to see, okay, hey, out of the Highway 26 cam, I see smoke. Or on my IR flights that the GAC does, there's something, there's a smoke, there's a heat indicator right there. And then they'll dispatch accordingly. Yes, sir.
One frustrating thing last year was trying to find out where the fire was really at, which would help in making decisions.
Yeah.
We left before we got to level 3 of our house. But we were having a lot of trouble trying to figure out just where the fire lines were at and what was going on. Is there anything being done to try to improve communications with the public on what the status is where things are at?
Yeah, 100%. So as soon as we get the information, we let people know. But what I'm going to tell you is last year we had 144 fires going at the same time. And so identifying exactly, we had a real tough time getting air assets to be able to identify and help that. What ended up happening for us at Clackamas Fire is we had a battalion chief whose wife worked for FLIR. He grabbed our portable radio, he jumped on the FLIR jet, and he mapped the fire for us because that was the only avenue that we had. And so it was about 24 to 36 hours into the event before we had a good idea of where the majority of the fires that we were facing, and then we had Riverside coming from the other side. So there are normally when the whole entire state's not on fire, you get air assets fairly quickly that can get up and give you a good or drones, things of that nature. We were having a heck of a time last year with as hard as that wind was blowing. I grew up in California with the Santa Ana winds. I've never seen the Santa Ana winds at the level that we had last year here. On Potter Road, the first night of the fire, I was looking at a green leaf, and you had this in your fire too, Ted. And it's a green leaf, looks like a green leaf, and you grabbed it, and it was crumbling in your hands. I'd never seen that before in this area. And the wind was blowing in this direction, and then it would flip and go 60 mile an hour the other direction. It was a pretty substantial wind event. And so getting our normal avenues of drones in the air or things of that nature, we were having a heck of a time. So
I think you're saying the communication problem was you didn't have the information to share. That's why you didn't get out the
Bingo.
media well enough
Bingo.
for people to be able to get.
Yeah, as soon as we had the information, it went straight to Brandon, and that got delivered to the resources, or once the EOC was set up at the county, everything was funneled through the county, and then as soon as the county gets it, they relay information out. Greg, do you have anything to add as far as that piece, as far as the comms?
Just about better communication and early awareness and reporting. Yeah, it's a challenge, like you're saying. As far as drones are going, we're hoping to add a couple drones to our repertoire.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a comment and questions.
Yes.
I'm very angry to see people flicking out their cigarette out of the window while it's still lit.
Yes.
And you see it's smoking down the freeway.
Yeah.
And can you write the person write the license number down and then call and report him? And then also, I remember I used to see signs along the road that says fine $500 for throwing out burning material.
Yeah.
And our roommate just 2 days ago saw somebody just putting out a lit cigarette too.
Yeah.
Out of the car, and she sees it bouncing around. And
Yeah.
and one time I pulled off along the road and there was smoke a couple feet up in the air. It wasn't a fire yet.
Yes.
And I pulled over and there
Put
was
it
a
out.
cigarette butt. Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
And then another time, he was driving in a car and he had his window down and he felt heat behind his back and his shirt burned a hole and the seat had a little hole in it from.
Vehicle went by the other way on a single lane road.
Holy moly. And put a cigarette.
Got stuck between my shoulder and the seat as I
Oh,
was driving
wow.
down the road.
So the question and concern was cigarettes being people driving down the road, flipping cigarette butts out the window, and the potential for that to start fire, which is very real, especially in today's conditions. We have to try to educate each other on not doing that, and that's the unfortunate thing. The problem with, you can always grab the license plate and report that, but that's a CCSO law enforcement question and answer there. Yes, sir.
Is the event that happened last September?
Yes.
We've had a lot of locals mobilized to fight fires themselves. Is Clackamas Fire receptive to that happening? And in the event of a similar occasion, something happening similar?
So our number one, first thing, and then I'm going to have my emergency manager, Greg Ramirez, come up and just speak to our resource list and what we've done from last year till this year. Our number one priority, and it's always going to be this way, is to get you is to get you safe, right? And the reason is because I don't want to go to your loved one and say, I utilized you and I didn't know you, I don't know your training level, and something happened, right? That being said, we have homeowners that say, I'm not leaving, and I have a dozer. Well, what I can tell you firsthand off of Potter Road for me is I said, will you please grab your dozer and give me a line right there, and I'm going to have this brush truck come along behind you. And we saved that neighborhood because of that local homeowner that had a dozer, and we were able to line with the fire front coming through there. So there's a lot of lessons that we learned last year as far as utilizing the public with, and the resources. And there's a lot, especially in this area, that have a lot of fire experience, that are local residents here that have been section chiefs, planning chiefs for the feds, for the Forest Service. And so being able to have that relationship and that comfort level, I'm going to tell you, makes me a little bit more comfortable as a fire chief, utilizing you. But I'm going to turn it over here to my emergency manager, Greg Ramirez, to talk a little bit about our resource list and to kind of answer what your question is as far as whether or not Clackamas Fire is receptive to utilizing the public and their resources that they have.
Thanks, Chief. That is a fantastic question. And it does become a challenge. As the Chief said, our first priority is the safety of the public. And so one of the challenges for us is how do we vet people? How do we know their capabilities, limitations? So that's one of the processes that we're working on is we build a list of resources that we can bring to bear. We're building that list every day. It's growing. It's a robust list, but it'll also contain part of that whole process isn't just collecting a list of names, but it's going to be also building in the procedure for vetting those individuals, for finding out what their capabilities are, how they can be used, and that's all part of the logistics issue, which Chief, I'll be working with logistics starting closely next week, and we're going to work just that issue. So, well, I've got the mic. I'm not going to give it up for a second. First off, I want to say thank you for coming out. This is where it starts, is with public awareness and just caring about your community and your neighbors and yourself. A big part of my job is working with the county and the state and all the stakeholders that we can bring to bear to fight these fires. But it all starts with your preparedness. And Carrie talked a great deal about preparing your homes and preparing yourself. It starts with you. So being aware, being proactive, and being prepared, starting today, making sure that if you had to leave your home tonight,
would you have the things that it would take to be self-sufficient for a period of time that you'd be away from your home? Okay, things like your prescription medicines, your reading glasses, whatever it takes for you to be self-sufficient, and for your pets as well. I think a lot of shelters now will accept pets. That's fantastic. Guess what? They won't have resources for your pets. So you'll need to take food, water, leashes, whatever you're going to need. So these are things that need to be thought through ahead of time. So again, I applaud this community for coming out in such numbers. This is really encouraging to see. And again, my name is Greg Ramirez. I'm the emergency manager. Never hesitate to call me personally. The website has a great deal of information about how to prepare yourself and your family, but it also has my personal phone number. I feel strongly that I need to be that available to the community, and I don't hesitate in calling me at any time you have questions. Any questions for me? Yes, ma'am. Well, by all means, you can wrestle it away from me.
Hi, my name's Amanda Brenner. Can you hear me?
Hey, Amanda, good to see you.
Thank you. So I'm with OSU Extension. I'm in the Forestry and Natural Resources Department. I don't want to take a whole lot of these guys' time, but I just wanted to let you know about a program that we're doing this Wednesday at 6 o'clock in the evening, or is it? Yes, 6, sorry about that. Greg will be a speaker as well. So we'll have a panel, 3 different panels. One panel speaking about emergency management, another panel of fire people, and then another panel with resources, so Soil and Water Conservation District, NRCS, chipper rebate, and things like that. So we can answer a lot of your forestry questions. And then we'll have a Q&A for people. So we will have OSFM, we will have Clackamas County Emergency Management, and all of those folks. So if you want a flyer, I have some, and there's also some on the table. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks.
Oh, it's online, sorry. We're still in Zoom world. So all of the meeting information is on the flyer. So you can register online and contact me if you need anything else.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much. Sir, was your question answered? Okay, great. Yeah. So my number one concern is that you're safe. Past that, having resources and being able to collaborate, and we're going to work through the emergency manager.
My question is that something to encourage the young people in our neighborhood, or is it something we should teach?
Yeah, the first thing that I'm going to tell you is I want you to evacuate. Personal safety, because the reality of it is when you have a 138,000 acre fire coming your way, I want to make sure that you go home to your family safe. And if you're not, then I'm diving resources in to where you specifically are to protect you. So I want you to vacate first and foremost. So, but I don't have dozers. I do now as far as my resource list, right? But so it's that fine line.
As far as like wooden decks, wooden fences, is there like resources as far as like fire retardants, or just like anything that one can use like fireproof or main dock when there's like flat that can't be away from the house?
The question is if you have a wooden deck, something that is potentially highly flammable, are there products out there that make them a little bit more fire resistant that you can put on? And Carrie, do you know of any on the market that would help in that process?
I don't. I know that there are products, but I would just suggest like maybe going online and then just checking it, and then if it's been tested and approved, and make sure it's not just some sort of scam or something. But just keeping them clear and free from combustibles is always a good suggestion. Another thing too is that like keeping your firewood not stored on the deck or under the deck, and then sometimes people like can kind of screen in or put lattice, like under if you have a vast deck space, and trying not to be tempted to store a bunch of combustible things under decks is always helpful.
So I'm the fire chief, right? Where do you think my 2 cords of wood was last year? Right? Where do you think it is this year? Right? Yeah. So this area for a long time, this kind of thing happened in California, happened in Central Oregon. We never really had it happen up here. but now look at our conditions, and we're noticing a little bit of a trend here. It's been about a 5-year trend in our area. So
just a quick question on the resource list.
Yes.
For example, we have in South Dakota, we have 3 tractors. Would you want to have that sort of, if my neighbors are willing to?
Yeah, it depends on the type of tractor.
And who would we contact if they want?
Greg Ramirez, right there. So clackamasfire.com, or you could call 503-742-2600 and ask for Greg. And that's the process that we would love to go through. The other thing is that when incidents like this happen, Greg's going to be out on the front lines with CERT to help coordinate some of the donations, things of that nature that come in, and so that will help in the process in the future. There's a couple other hands that I saw. Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple of prevention questions.
Okay.
So, speaking of Central Oregon, I know that there are a lot of communities that have implemented the Firewise program out there. And I was wondering if Clackamas County has talked at all about implementing something like that at the community level. It seems like we're underfunded, we need to look at all and educated, but there isn't like a great way for that to happen, and this program's already built nationwide. I mean, have you guys been talking about like a neighborhood meeting, setting things up, getting people involved in making our own community safer and our own neighborhood safer?
The answer is yes. I'll turn that over to Jay and Carrie. There she is right there.
We have 4 awesome Firewise communities, and what it is a fantastic program, but it has to take some sort of unification within a neighborhood. And it's usually like a very active homeowners association president. And so we have Beaver Lake Estates, we have Hunter Heights, we have 2 communities in Happy Valley. And it took one person in that neighborhood that said, we want to become a Firewise community. And what that is it's just that you go through the neighborhood, you kind of agree that we want to do this. Sometimes you can even get a discount on your homeowner's insurance, which is awesome. But it asks you to have one Firewise community day every year. And so someone has to coordinate that, and then you can have, the fire department can come by and just kind of make it a fun event, but it's cleaning up the common spaces, encouraging homeowners, like, hey, let's help you cut your grass a little bit shorter this year. But that's a great program. There's a statewide coordinator. And so you go through it, you decide you're going to put in an application, it's on they have a Firewise website, you get the application ready, we come out and try to do a risk assessment, and then that application is submitted to the statewide coordinator, and then most communities actually become Firewise communities. And it's more of a unified approach. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, they did do something about evacuation, they map out where to evacuate, they have multiple avenues to get out of the neighborhood. I mean, it's just
Yep.
it makes sense to do it for everybody. So my second question was, as far as Clackamas County goes, I know that in Oregon in general, I know we do not as much prescription burning as the surrounding states because of air quality regulations and laws, and I'm wondering if any of that has changed over the last year so that we can utilize prescription burning as a buffer technique, or if it's just the same, that we're not really going to address that.
I can't speak to that. Jay, do you know that question? Or the question was, do we know if there's been any state regulations that have changed as far as prescribed burning since last year?
Or are we just going to implement using it as a tool in this county?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the details of that. I've sat in on some of the public health wildfire smoke planning that's gone on, and I know there's been, in more urban areas, concern of remnant smoke from prohibitive burning, being a double-edged sword. So I think there's more concern about it, but I don't think that it's been resolved that they're going to restrict it. But I would wonder whether the Oregon Department of Forestry might have more
better answer for that.
Answer for a question like that in terms of regulations. One thing I want to just tag on with the Firewise question is our office, the Department of Emergency Management for the county, we facilitate and are the conveners for the county's wildfire protection plan, which we update about every 5 years. And we put in for a grant from FEMA in September of last year, and that's been awarded, and we're going to start the updating process this fall for every fire district in the county. And what that means is it's wildfire focused, but it's traditionally been working with all the districts to identify the hazards and the risk, the topography, a lot of very basic issues. This time around, we're focusing much more, as we do this update, on the impacts from climate change and how that affects each of the districts. And there's a lot of new modeling that's out there for fire risk. And so we're looking at the stressed trees. We're looking at insect infestations. We're trying to identify the kind of things that are creating more and more hazards and threats and vulnerability to our forests that maybe we haven't paid enough attention to before. And so we'll be working with folks like Greg as we work on this district's update. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for public engagement as we update that plan and get feedback and concerns that are on the record. And I think all of that helps to make it much more robust and dialed in because it's really meant to be a tool to help identify strategies and priorities that every fire district would have for wildfire management for defensible space at the homeowner and neighborhood level. So I'd say stay tuned going into the fall as we start ramping that up. And we don't want to conflict with how busy that time of year is for the districts, but we'll start planning and organizing going into the wetter months when we would actually be meeting in person and asking for more engagement like that.
Thanks, Jay. Amanda, you have something to add with that.
Yeah, your speaking skills and so I can't speak to a lot of it because it's in its infancy and I'm not directly related to the project, but I did want you to know about the OSU Extension fire program that really came about during the fires last year. It was developed and implemented beforehand, but got on the ground around fires, and so they are doing some prescribed burning. There's fire councils, so our regional specialist, her name is Amanda Brown. She can speak more to that. She'll also be on the meeting on next week on the 28th. And also for the smoke, OSU Extension is also working with you and other partners across the state on smoke remediation projects. So it's all really new, but I do want to get it out there, and there will be more resources and they will on these issues.
Thanks, Amanda. Yes, ma'am.
So last year, I'm not saying that exactly, but I did have a livestock. And so I just wanted to start spreading the word that there are some very good organizations that can help you with livestock evacuations. I want to shout out to Cowgirl 911. Oh, yeah. Our field director.
Love it.
And anybody else interested, there's about 5 or 6 local organizations that can help them with livestock evacuations and rescues.
I love that. That would be great to be able to get that at the county level as well as our emergency manager to have those resources. I'm going to tell you on the Oregon City fire. Oh, sorry. She was talking about livestock, being able to evacuate livestock and having the resources, and Cowgirl 911 being a great resource for that. We had the Oregon City fire. We had a resident with about $3 million worth of horses. And we were able to call the county. The county had people there immediately to evacuate the horses and get them to the Canby fairgrounds. So we have systems in play. We've learned a lot from last year, and it's resources like Cowgirl 911, it's resources like that the county has, and it's us all coming together in situations like that. So thank you for sharing that. Ooh, I saw the hand up. I just wasn't sure.
So somebody's already asked this question, I apologize.
Okay.
And I'll just find out later. But last year, one of the issues seemed to be ponds.
Yes.
And I only know this firsthand because I'm my good job, but what the chatter was amongst community people was that the power was down. So sheriffs were literally driving to a described corner, sharing information, and then sort of playing telephone with other sheriffs. Were blackout coverages. What some new redundancies on that? What are the backups? How is that going to work? That's really scary when you guys can talk to each other.
Phenomenal question. Okay. What I'm going to tell you is that we did have towers go down. We did have certain radio frequencies get overloaded. But what we have in this county and what Clackamas Fire has actually done, we worked with a local resident that out of Beavercreek that actually helped us ensure that our Highland Butte repeater and our Holcomb repeater was good. But we have a redundancy system that both CCSO use and the fire district uses as VHF. So that was in play. We did not use the VHF system last year to the fullest, but I never had an issue last year with communicating with my firefighters that were on the front lines. We had multiple different frequencies going. CCOM opened up other banks for us, and we had a comm tech come in and patch our Ops 26 to work with VHF systems as more resources came in. So the driving to here, I didn't experience that firsthand. I didn't see that happening, and I know CCSO, I didn't hear that from CCSO. So we had good communication. I will say our primary frequencies did get overloaded. They did have multiple incidents running on the same frequency, but a lot of that was just because when you have 144 fires, you only have so many dispatchers to monitor frequencies. So it just took a little bit of time to get the resources back into backfill so we could open up more frequencies. But we never lost. I ended up running the Potter Road fire on a simplex frequency with my handheld portable, and then my main frequency was in contact with dispatch. So we had comms throughout the whole entire fire, and we never had any comms issues. But we buoyed up our VHF system post that incident. And we have really gotten ourselves into a better situation through local advice and through resources to get to where we're going to be. And thank you to the group C800, which is a bond that got passed by the members of Clackamas County. They are building a redundancy system outside of what we already have as Clackamas Fire for the whole entire region. So mostly focusing on the eastern half, up in the dead zones, up Highway 26 and such. But we never had the comm issues that at least the fire side didn't. And talking to CCSO, I can't say that they did. Brandon, did you hear that at all? Okay.
This might be a Jay's question, but related to that, a lot of us who are ECT have conducted, we have internet use.
Yes.
That's very related to national. I get alerts from Clackamas County through my phone.
Yes.
Do you know if the county has done anything to create a redundancy system? I know ECT is a privately held company.
Right.
If we're not getting alerts to say that we're not evacuating,
Yeah.
in those circumstances, which I can imagine happening again, like what's the county's play when 30% of us, 40% of us don't have any cell phones or internet service?
Perfect. So this was a question that got brought up, and there's actually Jay or Greg. Would you like to hit this one, Jay?
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
I tried to be prepared for this question because I knew it was going to come up, and I wanted to anticipate that. But it's a work in progress, because I think the more rural you get, the less redundancy you're going to have in the systems where there may be limited cell coverage to begin with. So one of the things that I came here tonight with as a recommendation was a few things. Landlines, if you still have them, they're good to rely on if the power goes down. That's an optimistic view. Battery backup for your routers, so if you do lose power with your router, it can still function. If there's still Wi-Fi service outside of your house that you can receive, that's another idea. And then certainly having battery operated AM, FM radios, because all of our alerts that we send can go over both AM and FM signals. So even if your phones aren't working, which could happen either if you lose power in your house, or if the cell towers for some reason lose power or don't have generator or battery backup as well. And so PGE is certainly working very proactively, I should say, on all of this work at the community scale. And we've been sitting in with them on these planning meetings, and this is a big deal for them. They do have a website that's being updated and modified regularly. It's a long link for me to spit out right now. All I would say was just be to do a search with PGE and the letters PSPS, Public Safety Power Shutoff. And they have the mapping of where the areas are here. Some of them are near here for their systems. But that would be a good place to turn.
To shut it off?
I believe it's their decision. They own that equipment. Yes.
PG owns that.
They're saying they're planning to give people 72 hours of notice going into an event cycle, and then just up to the minute, hour notices before they actually turn the switch. So you're not taken by surprise. And I know they're working closely with the Public Utility Commission in the county for the rulemaking that gives them the authority to make these kind of changes. So we're engaged with them on how that's working. But I would ultimately defer to them and to the site that they have that's pretty robust to check it out.
Sir, you had your hand up.
Yeah, not all of us are up to snuff on all modern communications. Most of us do have AM/FM radio. You mentioned those. Does Clackamas County broadcast on either AM or FM in these emergencies?
So the question is that does Clackamas County broadcast on AM or FM frequencies?
No, not that I'm aware of, and I can look into that. But they can issue their alert and warnings through the Everbridge system that we have. We can do that through your phones and also through your radios and television sets as well. That's a standard national system that we participate in. So we may not be broadcasting in a program type, but we can certainly override what's currently on the station to issue an alert and warning notification, as can the National Weather Service and our partners in the media as well.
You had it.
I would just add that at the last county commissioners board meeting, there was a fabulous presentation by PGE. They walked right through a PowerPoint presentation that talked about the history. They've done their research on power safety shutoffs, and they have maps of where the zones are out there, very difficult to read everything out the road for me. But you can see that it is somewhat close to the town of Beavercreek, and it's something that you definitely want to check out on the county website.
Yeah, it's on the county commissioners. I think it was July 7th meeting. Was it the July 7th? 8th? Yeah, I can't. It was 7th or 8th, but it's on their website. You click on it, and there's the video, exactly what you're talking about. Please. I love it.
So, with the experience that I have with fire in this county, the two things that really stood out to me with last year was that, one, it was a very strong wind-driven fire scenario. Not only strong winds, but multiple fires. Working with the Oregon Department of Forestry and fire experts and being on teams and going across states, we always knew that multiple fire situations are going to be problems because of communication systems get overloaded. We get spread thin, and it's just the magnitude and complexity of the problem.
Yes, ma'am.
But the things that concerned me the most were that we have a lot of people that are in rural areas that have mobility issues, or elderly that are not on Facebook. They don't necessarily have a cell phone or accessing information online, period. And so they're waiting and watching to hear from their neighbors on whether they're leaving. And they also have wells, or they're not able to get up and clean out their gutters, and there's not a program or a group that's helping them to do maintenance on their home.
Yes.
So that, to me, I think is something your prevention person hopefully can focus on. The other thing that I saw that I felt was really important, again, was the communications with a fast fire like that. We're always behind the curve. People are waiting for a fire truck or a sheriff's department person to come to their door to tell them it's time to go.
Yeah.
Ready, set, go, and not the original writing of that document. At level 2, at set, if you are ready to go, if you need more time, you need to leave. You don't wait till go. You don't wait to get stuck in the traffic jam.
That's right.
You already have a plan of where you're going to go when you have your stuff in the
Yes, ma'am.
and you read. A lot of those things wouldn't happen. But there were times where online, there was a level 1 and there was a level 3. There was no level 2.
There wasn't the jumps, that's right.
And so when we were sitting in the evacuation place down at Oregon City High School, people were like, why are we here? We didn't even get a level 2.
Yeah.
I'm like, you have to know that if you have a fast moving fire, you're just not necessarily going to get that information. You're not going to have somebody at your door. You have to think for yourself and be prepared and you can. And you can always come back when you can see that it's okay.
That's right.
But a lot of people just really believe that there's going to be someone telling you when to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the homes that are being built, you guys have done a fabulous job with all the trucks and the people and the crew. Hats off to you, you know what you're doing. But the population move out into the rural areas or something that is really concerned.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your perspective on that. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you. Is there anything else that anybody has? Yes, ma'am.
Say thank you so much for your whole department.
Thank you.
You guys were phenomenal, and you just went with it, and you did heroic things. It was just amazing. You saved lives, you saved homes, and I just appreciate you so much, and I love this. This is great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. As the fire chief, I could not be prouder to serve alongside the men and women of Clackamas Fire. You have a standing army of 404 that are here for you. Wow. And I'm just proud of them. So thank you for recognizing that and saying that about our people. I'm super proud of them and what they showed and the resilience that they showed and the internal fortitude that they showed. It's something that I get a little emotional sometimes about because it's just, I was super proud of them, and to see them risk their lives and to see how tired they were and the blacks on their faces, it's something that I'll always remember. So thank you for saying that. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for spending your evening with us. I can't thank you enough for the questions that you asked us. And I hope that this was worthwhile. It's super important to me as a new fire chief that you know who we are and that we're here for you, and to eliminate any fears that are there, and to know that we are literally everything that we do, everything that we put our focus on is for you. And so I just wanted you to know that, and thank you so much for coming here and sharing perspectives, sharing the questions, and spending the evening with us. So thank you, okay? Appreciate you. All right. We have another one of these in Redland on August 9th, and hopefully we can get CCSO here as well. This has kind of evolved a little bit. Initially, it was just going to be the fire chief, me, getting to know the community and talk to you and let you know where we were, where we are, and where we're going. And through Tuesday nights, we're like, okay, there's a lot more questions. We need to get some more. So I appreciate, Jay, you coming to this, and hopefully see you on the 9th as well. Thank you so much. You guys have a great night and a great weekend, okay? Thank you.